So the original idea of medicine was that the body is a unique system of balances, and each one is individual, and it needs to be restored to its individual balance.
As promised, we have Rod Suskin here with us today, and we're going to talk about medicinal astrology. What is it? And welcome back.
Well, thank you. I love being here, so thanks for having me back. So, astrology...
You can move in, you know that,
well,
right?
I'm happy to. This is the most amazing place, so don't tempt me. I might just be here. I'll be back even when you don't invite me.
Anytime.
So, astrology and medicine actually have a shared history that isn't well known. And that is because the original system of medicine, people think of bleeding and the four humors as just primitive and throw it out the window.
Yes.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that even though the technical details were wrong or strange to us, the idea was a holistic understanding of the body and how everything in the body related to itself. So the original idea of medicine was that the body is a unique system of balances, and each one is individual, and it needs to be restored to its individual balance. And that's why they were bleeding people. They thought that would do it or whatever. But they also began to understand that, like everything else, the plants also fall under the planets, under the dome of heaven, as it were. So they began to study how the plants also responded to the different planetary cycles, and began to identify how plants are also connected to medicines and to the body, as we know that they are. The important thing about herbal medicine, as we know, is that the whole plant seems to have a relationship with the body that we don't see when they isolate individual ingredients that cause side effects and all of that.
This came up in a previous episode to somebody else, how important it is to use the whole plant, roots, stems,
it makes such
flowers,
sense.
everything.
Because, to me, the best example is always the coca plant, the cocaine one, because it's a good example of the plant is pretty harmless and people chew it and it helps them. But the substance you extract from it kills people quite fast and damages their lives.
Sure.
And so much of medicine is working that way unintentionally by isolating these ingredients. So that holistic view of the plant allowed them to categorize them according to the planets. So then it became apparent that you could use the planets to actually diagnose and treat. So for example, Mars conditions are all to do with heat or redness or injury or blood or inflammation. Those are all things about Mars. Mars medicines would be hot things, sharp things, poisonous things, and so on. Venus is the planet that's the opposite of Mars. The planets are also arranged in various patterns. Venus and Mars always stand opposite each other, divine spouses to the Romans, but astrology is even older than that. And so Venus has got the opposite. Venus is associated with things that are cool and calm and soothing. Venus illnesses will be too much of pleasant things, too much sugar, too much water, which we know is dangerous. Anything that's a little bit excess of a pleasurable thing or excess of pleasure itself, all of that can cause imbalance. So they're very different to the strong, sharp, dangerous Mars diseases. But if someone had a Mars disease, I could give them a Venus herb.
Okay.
Because a Venus herb has the opposite nature to Mars. So it'll have the opposite nature to a Mars disease. So it's allopathic medicine. It's the origin of allopathic medicine. And it'll fight against Mars. And so we'll use Venus to balance Mars. And use Jupiter to balance Mercury.
Right.
And we try and restore the balance that is unique to that individual. So the chart itself can be used to develop a physical profile, as many homeopaths actually use astrology for that. And you can see the unique mix of temperaments, sanguine, melancholic, choleric, and phlegmatic.
Again, the Steiner principles.
Exactly. And so,
what about the Vedic ones?
Well, the Vedic is incredibly similar. So it's slightly different. They have three. What's so instructive about the Vedic one is they call those flaws. Those are flaws.
Right.
And so it's actually true for the temperaments, because the perfect, of course, doesn't exist. So we can see what their unique balance is, and we can use the medicine to restore that unique balance.
So you're not a medical astrologist and you can't prescribe remedies?
No, although I've got a degree in psychology and not a practitioner's degree, that wouldn't allow me to prescribe anything. But I am actually a Sangoma. And South African I have been since 1982, and people sometimes think that that's
it's
really the dark ages. Yeah. And that does give me the permission to prescribe herbs. And actually, I also have a diploma in medical herbalism. That also does. And so I don't usually, because these days people don't come to astrologers for that reason. But as a Sangoma, I do.
I want to download your brain. Just plug it in.
It'll help me as it's all evaporating as I get older. I'm going
It'll
to need a
expand
copy of
mine.
that download.
Wow. Wow.
But so there's always more that astrology can do. There's always a way it can help someone because it's so integral to the human experience, whether it's medicine, whether it's our psyche or our soul, whether it's a question or a life issue. Astrology, because it's got thousands of years of shared human experience, often will point the way to an answer. And to me, that's its bottom line. It's the way that we have inherited all the ancestral knowledge of accumulated human experience. What could be more valuable than that? And we like to laud our modern medical systems that are just a couple of 100 years old. And as great as what they have to offer might be, we can't just assume that endless thousands of years of human experience was completely wrong.
Correct.
Because human beings lived, and they lived very similarly to how we do.
So I'm so wanting to give up everything I do right now and just go and study. That must be telling about my sign and my makeup as under the astrological chart reading.
Well, the love of study is the love of soul knowledge, because studying astrology comes from the house, which is also about spiritual things. So it's the urge to expand the soul.
And that's why it's so important that you then find a match in a relationship where you can share that.
Exactly.
And that's what I would need to look for, is somebody that can actually match that desire to find out how the universe works, why we act the way we do.
While it's true that, the perfect partner is different for everyone, one thing we do know is that when people differ philosophically and spiritually, the relationship starts coming apart. And I've seen enough ends of relationships through my clients to see that can cause, it's like growing in different directions. Some people it's okay. Not everyone needs the same thing. And, we also use astrology to look at compatibility, and some people are happy with a spouse that does their own thing and I don't have to get involved. But most of us need someone to grow with. Why else do we have relationships?
That's right. And I mean, if I want to tell somebody what I've learned,
exactly.
I don't want them to sit like and half fall asleep.
Plus have an opinion that might help you. So they also need to be on that path.
Always lovely having you. Right?
Such great fun to be here. Look forward to it again.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Always welcome.
Thank you.